Welcome to this divination today. Begin to ground your energy. Sit yourself in a relaxed position. Affirm to yourself where you are. I am seated, I am walking if you are using this as an opportunity to move around and work or go about your house chores. Or just general chores, really. Take a deep breath into the body. And exhale, ground, so that your nervous system understands that it is time for me to receive a message from my highest perspective. And in order for me to be able to receive from my highest perspective, I need to receive or become the receiver that is grounded for this information to be embodied in my body. So take a deep breath into the body again. Relax the shoulders. And a deep grounding breath out. Okay. So a message here is you'll know exactly the person or the people I'm speaking about when I say this. There are people in your midst that you are getting advice from that are not walking their talk. And some of you are getting their advice from their parents' advice, from their mentors' advice, from the biblical advice, from somebody else's podcast advice. It's not embodied in them. A classic example I'll share. Growing up, I had people, because I grew up religious, I had people in my life telling me, save yourself for marriage. That is just way better for marriage. Save yourself in terms of save your virginity. And there were things that would happen that I couldn't quite understand. Why is this guy coming around? Or why are these kids being left behind? Or what is going on here? And even prior to that, that was religious advice. Only to find that long time ago, they had obviously broken their virginity. And in the midst of giving me this advice, they are the ones having sex, unmarried. So you hold a message that comes from an unembodied state of mind, and you're getting their true essence that perhaps they really wish that they could save themselves, or they wished they could have, and they're looking at you as them, as if I had to speak to my younger self, this is the advice I would give, right? But the thing is, when you are getting advice, you are getting it from the unembodied state. It's either just book knowledge or intellectualized, but it's not felt knowledge. And some of you, with the advice that you are getting from people, you are doing the exact same thing. You are receiving from them the same book knowledge and unembodied state. That is what you are receiving when you are receiving advice from people. Because you must understand, as people, we love to give advice, and unsolicited advice sometimes. And in that unsolicited advice, we could be doing the same thing because it makes us feel better about ourselves that we know that knowledge. And in knowing that knowledge, there becomes this competition. You must remember, we grew up a lot with competition in our homes. It started there with our siblings. It would be, let's say you messed up, you scribbled on the wall or whatever was the case. Then you had a sibling who, look at them. Why can't you be like them? So already, by looking at that reference point and having those words and seeing the frustration in your parents with you marking on the walls and not taking a piece of paper and doing it there, it feeds into your brain and into the subconscious mind that I am not good enough and I need to be perfect. Whereas in that time you were scribbling, you were probably having some divination. Something was like you need to create in that moment, and to find the paper as a child, think about it, to find a piece of paper, to find the correct crayons for the paper, it's just too much for the brain. Think of you when you want to do something, you're just like, oh my goodness, the process that has to take in order for me to get there from here. It's too long. Here's a canvas, let me use it. So do you understand, from your creativity, then you stopped being creative. Then you stop questioning, because then you go to them to seek advice. And I promise you, more than half the time you would find that they're not living up to what they are saying, because it's a desire. Remember, we love to give advice. It's just human nature, whether it's from a competitive point of view, whether it's, I know this knowledge and it's something that I do want to learn, but right now I don't. Even that, be careful. So there's two things here. You can either, when you think of that person, you're like, I know. Become more intentional when you are surrounded by them. Or stop hanging around. Those are your two main options in your healing process. Because the healing process takes long because you are still hanging around where your wounds were initiated and created and then implemented. So you do the healing work, then you still hang around with toxic family members because the wounds are energetic. At least some of the wounds, they're energetic. And then they physically take place for some, right? So whether there was some form of molestation, some rape involved, some physical harm, it's still energy. A wound, a stabbing, a scabbing, whatever it was still energy that was represented. And you might not feel the pain, the physical pain, but you're feeling that energy in your body and you're feeding into it constantly. Because let's say you had some form of accident, right? And it took place by doing something that you knew you shouldn't have done. Would you now go do that thing all the time? In certain cases, yes, because there is that space where you allow yourself to mitigate the contraindications of that thing. But in some cases, you would definitely, it's a big no-no. So this becomes discernment on understanding, who am I getting advice from that is walking their talk, is in pursuit of the frequency of unconditional love consistently. Not taking, there's no time out. Consistently healing. Because then you get frustrated as to why you're not seeing the results, because you still hang around with the toxicity. I don't know where it was said, or where I heard this, but if you continue to hang around shit, first you're just like, oh my goodness, this reeks. And at some point you're like, because you're seeing monkey see, monkey do, you're seeing the people you love and care about hanging around with it and they don't mind. And you're just like, oh, well, maybe I'm just being a little bit bougie about this. What is it? We all shit anyways, right? So this is just some advice. You You came here because your higher self needed to remind you. Some of you are hanging around toxicity and where your wounds were created, and you are feeding into the system deeper. So this is why you're wondering why you're not getting the healing, and you're paying so much money, but you're still not getting the healing. And you're talking about needing the healing, but you're still not getting the healing because you're hanging around toxicity. Please do like, share it if you want to contribute to this channel. There's some information down below if you want to get more. But please just take care of understanding, who am I getting advice from, and are they walking their talk?